having me here. I'm very much admiring of Fundación Flor. I think it's a very, very good foundation that is helping a lot of women. And also happy to see the Gran Chaco and La Red de Mujeres Rurales. For us, it's essential to work with rural women, with indigenous population, and of course with Afro-descendant populations that in our region, they receive a lot of discrimination, unfortunately. Let me talk about 3 barriers that we believe in young women that are structural and that we need to address. The first is the discrimination of women to get credits. That's the first barrier. We know that is a gap of 25% more or less. Equal condition of men, equal condition of women, they are discriminated 25% more. Because they are young, because they're going to have a baby, because. And you know what? The people that approve the loans are 90% men. And unfortunately, they don't understand that women return the credit 98%. We are risk averse, so we don't like to have debts, and we are very, very good pagadora, como se dice, we pay our credit. So that's the first barrier. It's a barrier that is cultural, it's a barrier that is in the minds, in the stereotypes, and in the bias. So we need to continue working to remove bias, to remove stereotypes, and to remove the discrimination. Because the banks are losing millions of dollars because they're not including women. And the society is losing tons of jobs that they could have been created by women's entrepreneurs, you know, because they cannot scale up, because they cannot have access to credit. So that, for me, is a very important barrier that we all need to work. Private sector, international organization, government, civil society, everybody has to work on that. The second big barrier for us is the lack of understanding that women are agents of change and that they have the creativity, the innovation to do things in technology, in science, everything, in every aspect. And in the case of the rural women, they don't even have cooperatives of credit to access. So I give you one example. If you are a young woman doing a startup of technology, you have only 2% chance to get financing from venture capitals. 2% chance. Why is it that 98% of men have more chance than women? So that is another area that we have to work, technology, and particularly the rural women. We had a very great example in Uruguay, my country. We worked with the Ministry of Agriculture in order to create cooperatives for rural women. It was a success because they never have access to any credit. And the biggest problem that women have is that they can't have access to microcredit or micro-enterprise lending. And the problem is that when they scale up their entrepreneurship, they don't have access to credit. The banks are biased against them. And you know, there is a gap of $90 billion in order for these women to get loans. We call it the missing middle. Women that upgraded their micro lendings and they want to have 50,000, 100,000 loan, and they don't get it. So that's why that's a second barrier, right? That you have access to microcredit immediately, but then you are in the missing middle. And this is not a cultural barrier as before. This is a real barrier. And the third point is the legal frameworks. And that's what we are working on with the central banks to understand that they need to have credit lines. Credit lines to guarantee loans for women. It doesn't mean that they're gonna disburse those loans. It means that they can guarantee. So we are working with different central banks in order for them to understand. Now, let me tell you what UN Women is doing. In Central America, Guatemala, Honduras, and Salvador, we have a program financed by the generosity of Luxembourg to enable the environment for financial inclusion. And doing all these things that I'm saying, working with the central banks, working with CABE, which is the Central American Economic Integration Bank that has headquarters in Honduras, in order to convince them to leverage whatever resources we put, they leverage it 10 times more. And that has helped women to have confidence that whatever they are doing in their little entrepreneur, they will have backing, in financial backing. And also particularly for small entrepreneurs from the most poor area of Latin America, which is the Triángulo Norte, is where Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, the borders, is the most poor area, because it's what we call it the corredor seco. There's no water. It's very, very difficult, and the men are very violent in that area. So that's why the top of the migration for Central America comes from that area. So we started working there in order to integrate the supply chain of the big companies. So making relationship between the small entrepreneurs and the big companies. And this is our role. This is the role of international organizations, to try to link, to try to enable them to understand what is the situation. So that we do in Central America. In Chile, we have a program that is called Originarias, and we are working with indigenous women in order for them to have financial literacy. Because like all of us, we never got education in finance. I wish I had in primary school an understanding of what is to be an entrepreneur, or what is to be producing. And these women, once you give them the training, the mentoring, they are flying. They are exporting. They are, they don't need us anymore. And this is a fantastic effort when you see them growing, when you see women understanding. And then in Costa Rica, with this I finished, we created a technological platform that is called Buy for Women. And we did it together with national institutions in order for the women to have a space, a technological space, an internet space to sell their products. They have to go through certain specifications, and that program grew very, very, is growing, not so fast, but it's growing steadily. And I've been with productoras, very, very poor areas that have lost everything in pandemic, and they are producing, I don't know, soap or velas, ¿cómo se dice? Candles, and now they are exporting. The other day she called me and said, somebody in Germany asked me for 100 candles. Mm-hmm. Can you believe it? And she is in a little town in the north. So they are discovering what is international trade, what is it that they can do to earn hard currencies as well. So those are the barriers. Some of the solutions are technological, other solutions are the network, to how you relate one sector to the other, how you relate with social impact investors. There are a lot of social impact investors that need feminist organizations, NGOs organizations, and grassroots organizations in order to finance their entrepreneurs or their ideas or their solutions. So you need to understand that there are opportunities there. We need to bring them together.
And that's the topic we're discussing today.
So thank you so much for having me, and that's it.